aside from being Rotarian, I'm an advocate for CASA, and right now I'm caring for a 3-month-old who's in the system and hoping he has a good outcome. And so today we have a couple people from CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, who are going to speak to us. Jessica Robinson is now their new outreach coordinator, and Melissa Murphy is their marketing person. Coordinator. So that they will talk to you about the program and opportunities there.
Well, hello. So I started with CASA in December, and it was sort of a godsend for me, and I want to explain why. When I was 5 years old, my mom was 18, and she just had, well, she was 20. She just had my baby brother, and she decided she was done with my dad, and she basically left, and she took us with her. But she was young and just broken, and it was a really tough transition for me because I heard all the lies of how terrible my dad was and just everything that was bad about him. And so I had to go into the court system and speak with the judges, and they asked me at 7 years old who I wanted to live with. And based on what I'd heard, of course I chose my mom. And what happened after that was I moved every 6 months to a year. I was in a different home, a different place. We were homeless sometimes. We were in and out of the court system. I was bullied and treated really poorly because we smelled bad. We had hand-me-down clothes that were torn, and we didn't know where we were from, and then we would move again. So I would have this foundation of I'm just worthless because I wouldn't have closure from these circumstances. I would just feel like, well, they must be right because it keeps happening. And as I grew up, you know, I started to transition into adulthood, and I had no foundation of anything healthy in my life. In fact, it was the hardest thing in the world for me to face the fact that when I really got to know my dad, he was sober, he was getting his master's degree, he was having a healthy foundation for his own life, whereas my mom was still an alcoholic, and she was still on drugs, and she was a carny, and she just was so unstable. So what happened to me is I took that as I made a poor decision as a child. And so I carried all of this guilt with me because it wasn't just for me, it was also my little brother, and he had to go through all of that too. So what happens is with CASA, when we stick up for children in the system or going through circumstances like that, it's a different voice because they're trained, right, to understand abuse. They're trained to understand neglect. They're trained to see the signs that as a child you don't even understand. You don't know, you don't realize what you're going through, you just think that's your life. And so I had this really poor representation of what the world was like, and it felt like this is just the cards I've been dealt, this is where I belong, this is where I will stay forever, and I will just continue to be this way. And so what happens is I now, like as an adult, it took me 30 years to get healthy, to realize that I can do better, to realize that I don't have to be broken and seeking for attention in every way I had possible. And I did it in the most unhealthy ways. And I think that when we talk about CASA, because I'm going to introduce, this is Jessica, and she's new, but she's also an advocate. And so she has a story to tell too. And you see that children, when we're little, we don't know. We don't know anything. What we see is what we get, and we think that's it. And so when you have somebody that can speak on your behalf, it changes your world. Not only that, but it changes how the world sees you. Because now not only am I worth something, but I have somebody sticking up for me. So I'm going to go ahead and give this to Jessica and let her explain more about what we do.
My name is Jessica Robinson, and I am the new Outreach Training Coordinator for CASA. I've been with CASA for 3 weeks, so I'm new, learning all of this odds and ends. But like she said, I got sworn in as an advocate in March, so I've only been there 4 months, and it's an amazing experience. I am very is my partner. We both do it, so we both have a case of 6 children. It makes me cry because they're all teenagers, and I mean, I have 3 kids, but they're little. I never dealt with teenagers because I consider myself the best teenager ever, but my mom probably didn't. So seeing these kids and what they go through and how difficult it is for that age, it really breaks my heart because they don't know any better, and they understand so much that it's like, what do I do? What do I say? Like, how do I help them feel loved and cared and supported and know that they'll be fine? But the truth is that they know what is going to happen. So I'm very grateful for this program, for this organization, what they do, what they provide, and how they're so involved with these foster kids. Because we have 250 plus kids in a waiting list. So those are how many kids are waiting for an adult to come and be their voice, speak up for them in court, help them out through the process, because these kids are mentally, physically, emotionally, and sadly sexually abused. So our goal is to go out to the community and make them aware of what CASA is and what we do. We want to make sure everyone is helping us with these children because they need us. They really do. And as an advocate myself, I realize that at the end, I need them to become a better person. I need them to be a better mom for my kids now. So it's an amazing, it's an amazing thing. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to do this. And my husband, who better than your significant other to be there with you and support each other through this process for them. I do want to share with you guys some stats that we have currently in CASA. So 52 of our foster kids are boys. 52%. 52%, sorry. 59% of foster boys are more likely to be incarcerated as a minor. Half of all teen boys, again, out of foster care and already are fathers themselves by 18 years old. 23% of Tulare County CASAs are males, so yes, we are seeking for males. We need that, and it's crucial. I think as, I see it, for example, with my kids and my husband, that love between father and son or father and daughter is absolutely amazing. It's beautiful. And these kids, that's what they crave. They want that male figure in their life, someone that's, I see a male as someone strong, someone dedicated, someone just with the authority, and I feel like those kids are what they're seeking. So we really want all of these males to come up, step up, and please help us, because females, that's kind of our instinct. We're mothers, and it comes with us. We want to do whatever we can for the kids and be there for them, but sadly our situation is we need males, and not a lot of them are stepping up. Foster children experience a PTSD at twice the rate of our war veterans. 26% of children run over from their homes, and as a result, they are consuming drugs and they get some type of addiction. 32% of foster children live in relative homes. 26% of children in foster care are under the age of 1. 23% of foster children live in institutions or group homes. Neglect is the #1 reason children are removed from their homes. So those are some of the stats that we have currently within the Tulare County. I know that I just moved from San Jose, from the Bay Area. And I moved here because my husband's family lives here, but I think it's such a family-oriented place, and I love it. I think it's beautiful. I love the whole Tulare County, and I would never picture it to be this way. I never thought that this whole area had so many kids in the foster system until I came into CASA. So it's very unfortunate. It is very sad. But I'm very glad to be here because I want to give it my all for these kids. And I'm just very grateful to be here and you guys listening to us. I know I wrote down there. But we can all be a CASA, find someone to be a CASA, love CASA, so we can all ensure that less children will have to suffer long-term in foster care system, for less children to move from home to home, and they'll be heard, cared for, and appreciated, and set up for success. Thank you, guys. Do you guys have any questions?
Jessica, can you explain what's involved to become an advocate?
So anyone could become an advocate, but the process is you do have to come in for orientation. That takes less than 30 minutes. After the orientation has been done, we set up for a screening interview. With the screening interviews that we ask very personal questions about you. And then after that, if we see that you're the correct person for these children, because it is a lot of things going in their cases. So if we think that you're not okay to go through or see everything that goes behind that, then we would appreciate you in some other way, like spreading out the word or helping us if we have some type of booth and having like a event or anything, but a street team we call that help us out. That would be great. But then after, if you do get accepted, we have 4 trainings all year round. There's the winter, spring, summer, and fall. Right now we're currently in the summer training. It goes from July 16 and you get sworn in August 3rd or 13th. And it is Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5:30 to 8:30 for 6 weeks. So it is a huge commitment to come into the training. I understand, and we understand that life kind of gets in its ways, but what you get from that after you get your case and you start to interact with the children is absolutely amazing. I cannot describe it because the feeling of it, it's unreal. And especially when you go to court and the judge tells you, where's CASA? I want to hear what CASA has to say, and they take your voice into consideration more than anyone. I think that's the best thing ever, because you know that they're all working for the best interest of the child.
Do you get, as a CASA advocate, do you get to choose what case, or do you take what's given to you?
You do get to choose.
Okay.
They actually ask you what age group would you prefer to work with, what gender would you like to work with, and then the coordinators will, after you're done swearing in, you do a final interview with whatever coordinator you're going to work with, and they set up or bring out cases for you. And then you could read through it and tell, you know what, I could do this, or sorry, this is too much, and then we'll bring out, because we do, we have 200 plus kids, so we do have plenty of cases for you to choose that you could work with.
I just want to add to, sometimes, however, because of priority, we may ask you like to just go away from what you prefer, because we have two separate distinctions. We have 0 to 5, and then we have 6 to 21, which is like a huge difference, right? It's a very vague spectrum. But what happens is the older kids, because they understand more, they often are harder and more difficult, so they get the least chosen in these processes because they're a lot harder to handle. And so we try our best, but sometimes we might ask you to please like step in for one of the older kids.
Well, that's why I got 6 kids and they're teenagers, right? Because I was like, yeah, I could take it. Totally. I'll pass it through my husband and then we'll find it.
So you use the term, these older kids are harder to handle. Give me a scenario, what are you talking about?
So, okay, speaking also from experience, when you're little and you go through these circumstances, it's traumatizing.
No, I understand how they got there.
Right, and so I'm explaining that.
Okay.
So what happens is they believe these lies that they're worthless, that they're this, they're that, and that they don't trust anybody. And so there is a very long process sometimes of actually getting through to the child, because your job as a CASA is to be not just someone who speaks up for them in court, but also sort of a light in their life. And as a CASA, you want to teach them things, and you want to talk to them, and you want to get through to them, but they don't want to listen sometimes because they've seen so many people in and out of their lives that they don't trust you. And so it takes time for them to open up to you, and a lot of times they act out with aggression because they're angry, or they don't want to listen, so they don't share their experiences or what they're going through, or they're getting in trouble at school because they need that attention and they'll get it wherever they can. And so there's a lot more problems that come from an older kid than from a baby. When you're a little tiny baby, you don't know any better, you just trust.
So are they voluntarily meeting with the CASA, or are they court ordered to meet with the CASA?
They are court ordered, but some of them, when they're older, have that option to say they don't want their CASA anymore. And sometimes they might say, I don't want that CASA. And so we have to cycle them out into a new advocate.
So are they meeting like once a week, twice a week, or is it a scheduled
Yes,
meeting?
no, you meet once a week so we ask for the volunteers to put 10 to 12 hours a month, but the hours, it sounds a lot, but you count from when you leave home to get to their home and the time that you spend there and drive back home. I'll tell you in my case, I do an hour to an hour and a half because I do have 6. So it's more time consuming because they all want the attention. It took me a while to break that ice because they were like, well, who are you? Are you a caseworker? You're a social worker? Who are you? And I'm like, no, I'm CASA, I'm here. Well, how much do they pay you? I'm like, well, I'm here because I want to be here. I'm volunteering my time. Why would you do that for us? So that's what's difficult with teenagers, because they're more knowledgeable of everything that's going around. You know, you have all these therapists, social workers, you know, all these people that come in their lives. So that's why it's so difficult with that age, because they push you out of their lives immediately. Like, they don't accept you. So for me, it took me, I'm gonna say 4 or 5 visits to finally start engaging with them. To now, I'm Aunt Jessica and my husband's Uncle Brett. So I think it's a huge improvement of us coming over on a regular, consistent basis of every week. I'm here every Monday at 5:30. Either you want me or not, I'm here. If you push me away, not a big deal, I'll be back next week. And I think that's what it is being consistent. And you never know, those kids have, you know, after school programs, Boys and Girls Club, or church, or all these things going on. So you could visit them for an hour, 30 minutes. It could be an in-home visit, out-of-home visit. It all depends on you.
The court for children's court is still up by the prison, 10 miles north of town. Is that correct? Where you go for the court hearings?
Yes, there's that, or there's Porterville now, cause they do open, so we do, Porterville Mondays and Fridays, and then the rest of the week
So
is.
I'm gonna ask, I have been to the court, and I was a director of CASA. When you get to the court, and you've got a 6 or 7-year-old, and you've got the mother on one side and the father on one side, they don't speak maybe English. Could you describe the process of how that hearing actually goes with the judge?
Well, they use a translator, they do have someone that, is that what you're asking, that
Yeah,
they?
how does it actually work?
So for example, I'll put it on what I've experienced on one of my cases. The parents do speak Spanish, or they don't speak to each other, and they do have translators that come and tell them exactly what's going on, and they know who I am. Clearly there's a restriction, I'm not allowed to speak to the parents, depending on what case you have, because they're all different. They all have different things. In mine, I am not allowed to speak to the parents. So they do go into court and they have either someone translate them, or they put like an ear set and then they do the translation.
Would each parent have an attorney,
Yes, they do.
court appointed or not?
Mostly.
Mostly, yeah. Any other questions?
It's not a question, I was a CASA advocate a year or two ago, and it was the most challenging but rewarding experience I've ever done. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who's considering it. And to go, I had a teenager as well, to go from, building that trust with her to, in her appointments, her being asked like her top 3 contacts that she never wants to lose touch with was like me, her mom, and like one other person. It's just an amazing experience. These kids don't have people in their life that are not being paid to spend time with them. So when they find out that you're volunteering and you're there just to be their voice and to be their advocates in court, we spend time getting to know them. We would go, to the mall and try on makeup and go to lunch and talk about all the things that she wanted to talk about. And it just, I can't recommend it enough to at least try it one time. It is a big time commitment, but worth every minute. So.
Yeah, we do ask for, when you become a volunteer, for an 18-month, that you have to, 18-month window to be with us, but because all cases vary, you could be in one case for 6 months or one for longer than that. So that's kind of we ask that commitment from you, let alone you coming into our door, but the gratification that you have behind that, it's amazing. Just like she said, when they're like, well, who pays you? It's like, no one. Then they're like, oh, okay, well, you really do care. And then they start opening up more from what they've been through. And that's so helpful, because at court, now you make better decisions than even the social worker, because they have, 50 plus cases in their hands, so it's crazy. And so that's
They don't really have the time and resources to spend that one-on-one time with the child. So they know the facts that they hear, and they spend a little bit of time with the child, but with a CASA, you get really deep down into the core of who that child is, and so you understand a little bit more of where they're coming from. And you're also, with the training, you're trained in a lot of different fields of ways to recognize signs of abuse, because not every child is going to speak up. Not every child is going to tell you that they've been touched or hit or they're bullied. A lot of times they'll hide it because they don't know any better. And so as a CASA, you have a very special role in their life, and you're not just another individual, but you're also their mentor, and you become family in a way. And we even have CASAs that once their child ages out of foster care, they still maintain those connections because you've made a relationship and you fostered it, and you're no longer just a person and another person, you've become family in your heart. So it's a beautiful opportunity. It's beautiful.
Can I say one thing? All right, so they're talking a lot about the teens. I work with a 3-month-old, drug exposed, so he was born addicted. And so with mine, I see him every other week. Yesterday he got to have testing because we want to make sure he's developing on schedule. And we have that power to push those things. I had a previous case where the child just did not speak, and I was able to push to make sure she got tested to see if she was developmentally on track or if she needed extra services. And those are things that we have the power to do, aside from being in court. And I also could watch her interact with her biological mother to see, is this a good fit for her to be reunited with her mother? And one of the most spectacular places was to do that at Imagine You, to watch her interact with her mother and daughter there. And after 3 hours of watching that, I said, this is gonna work. So we have that power to do that, and the judges listen to us, which is just spectacular.